Hello, my name is Lindsey, Director of Student Life for Middle Georgia State College. This session today represents our annual RSO Policies and Procedures Training. However, I must give you my disclaimer. If there's an expectation that this session today will give you everything you need to know from A to Z as it relates to student life, as it relates to RSOs, this is not the session. Rather, with this session, what I hope to accomplish for this session is rather to give you a very broad overview of the policies and procedures, sharing with you any new policies and procedures that have arisen as of last semester. So stay tuned. I hope this session for you is very informative, and it should last about 20 to 25 minutes. Ideally, this would be a classroom full of students, advisors, officers, leaders, etc. However, this first slide, I would like for you to give your name, your organization, what your role is, and a very brief description of your organization. Again, my name is Lindsey. I'm representing the Office of Student Life as a director. Today we're going to talk about some of the benefits for the RSOs. Specifically, you will have the opportunity as a recognized student organization to book space on your particular campus completely free of charge. You will receive an automatic invitation to Club Rush in the fall and in the spring. And you will also have the opportunity to open an agency account. I have to give you a word of caution here about agency accounts. As much as I love my own particular financial institution, for recognized student organizations, there can be no outside bank accounts. No Robbins Federal, no Bank of America, no BB&T, etc., etc. I also want to make sure that everyone understands that when you fundraise, all deposits must be deposited directly into your agency account. Another benefit is you have the opportunity to be nominated at our Spring Leadership Awards, which will be held in the spring. You will also be eligible for COA funding, and additionally, you will have the opportunity to obtain free consultation on major event planning and implementation. Our conversation today will focus on organizational structure, financial management, and event programming and planning. Registering your student organizations. You must register every year to be a recognized student organization. What does registration actually mean? That means attending training, much like you're doing today. That means submitting your recognition documents, which includes your advisor intent form. It also includes your drug and alcohol-free campus forms, your roster, and information about your agency account. Registration, or re-registration as it were, begins with the first day of the fall semester and ends the last business day in September. For the spring semester, recognition or registration begins the first day of the spring semester and ends the last business day in February. It is important to understand that this recognition process is important for a number of reasons for me. It allows me to build my distribution list, thereby communicating with each of you all on a regular basis about upcoming events in student life, student affairs, and business of the college. So once I have all of those forms together, I will delete my current distribution list, pick up all of you all, add you to my new distribution list, and I will be able to have regular communications with you as it relates to, again, student life business. Let's talk about transition for just a moment. Why should organizations transition? There are a couple of good reasons why. You can, when you transition, transfer that significant organizational knowledge. You can help your incoming leadership by absorbing the special expertise of your outgoing leadership. How can you transition? A couple of ways. You can do it by training, in-house training for your particular RSO. You can also do it by just simply observing your current officers. You can plan a retreat for your recognized student organization, or my personal favorite, you can begin to assemble a transition notebook. In student life, we've done just that. Across all 5 campuses, we now have transition notebooks in place that kind of gives a very broad overview of what each person who is a student life professional, what their job entails. For instance, a little while ago, the Office of Student Life suffered 2 major exits due to employee transitions. Before the 2 employees left, I worked with them to actually put together their transition notebook, which has now been very instrumental for the new employees to kind of see very broadly what the position actually entails. Earlier I talked about the availability of space for RSOs. I'm going to talk about what particular locations are available on your respective campus. For instance, Macon, Cochran, Dublin, Eastman, Warner Robins. There are very critical folks in place there who can help you determine the best location for your RSO. Those persons who will be your points of contact are actually the people who are running this particular RSO session. So the key to getting some of that prime real estate on your respective campuses is to book early. I'll give you one example of booking early. The Macon-based Accounting Association holds a Meet the Firm night every fall. I think it's actually in September. So rather than wait until the end of August, beginning of August, they actually book the space in the summer. So they have 3 or 4 months to decide on their date, get it approved, get it confirmed on the calendar, etc., etc. But again, the key is to book early. Revenue producing events. What are revenue producing events? Those are events that you trade a good or a service in exchange for cash, in exchange for dollars for your particular RSO. Revenue producing projects include the selling of t-shirts, the selling of tickets and or charging admission to public activities or events, and the selling of other goods and services. Before you fundraise, you must have an agency account on file with the business office. Again, you cannot have an off-campus bank account. If you would like to establish an agency account, please visit the following website, www.mga.student-life/documents. Once you complete the form, and I will show you what the form looks like. Once you complete the form, that goes to the Vice President of Student Affairs, Ms. Jennifer Brandon. I also would like to say that the business office will handle the paperwork for your particular agency account. Student Life has nothing whatsoever to do with the agency accounts. I cannot give you an account balance. I cannot accept deposits. I cannot accept check requests. These functions must be conducted through the business office. This is a sample. I'm hoping that you can see the sample. I'm hoping that you're taking notes. If you're not taking notes, that's fine. Because upon the conclusion of RSO training for all 5 campuses, this PowerPoint, as well as the post-test that will accompany this RSO training, will be sent to everyone on my current distribution list. So, in case you can't see it, this is a copy of the agency account agreement form. Again, this will go through the Vice President of Student Affairs. If you would like to request a balance from the business office for your particular agency account, please, 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 upon the request of the business office, refrain from using the balance inquiry request form more than once per semester. Maintaining your account balance is actually the responsibility of your treasurer. So, make sure your treasurer is keeping proper documentation and use the business office to request your balance as a check and a balance, if that makes sense. Student Government Association. One of the functions of your SGA is actually to allocate funds for student organizations. 3 things you must do in order to qualify for COA. You must attend and complete RSO training. This semester is actually held in the fall. Going forward, the training will be held in the spring. So when you get an email from me later this year, beginning of next year, saying it's time for RSO training, I know that we will just had it, but my goal is to get you back on track and to align you with the actual budget processes of student affairs. So to reiterate, you must complete training, you must submit a budget request form, and you must also go through the RSO recognition period by submitting those documents that we spoke about earlier. The advisor intent form, drug and alcohol free forms, the roster, all of those documents. Those 3 things comprise the necessary steps you need to do in order to qualify for COA. We're going to talk about the financial processes. Just want to reiterate once more that all agency account transactions for RSOs are submitted through the business office. This does include deposits and new accounts. We have 4 discussion topics coming up: agency accounts, transaction types, deposits, and commonly used terms. What does an agency account actually do for an RSO? It allows you to check certain functions, i.e., check the account balance, make deposits, pay invoices, request funds, and submit reimbursement vouchers. You must have an approved agency account on file and approved by the Office of Student Affairs prior to transactions being processed. There's nothing that is more discouraging is to receive a bill for payment for an outside vendor for X amount of dollars and there's no agency account to pay for those funds. So be sure you have your agency account open and approved by Student Affairs before conducting any fundraisers. Like to complete the form for an agency account? That is actually found online at www.mga/accounting-services/agency_account_information. That form is also found on the Student Life Documents page. We're going to talk about reimbursements. Reimbursements for students, faculty, staff, information about travel. There's a new document as it relates to travel for recognized student organizations. We're going to talk a little bit more about funding and payments for services. Reimbursement payments for purchases. This does include students, faculty, and staff. Reimbursements can be made only under the following conditions. An individual has paid for something on behalf of the organization and needs a reimbursement. The original receipt has been provided. The purchase was authorized by the RSO according to meeting minutes. The RSO has proper funds, agency or COA, to pay for this voucher. Students' reimbursements. Things to remember. Please do not highlight your items on your receipt because it makes it very difficult to read. Rather than highlight, please circle the items that you're referencing on your receipt. Write your name, your MGA ID number, your RSO name, and your correct mailing address on the receipt. And just a shameless plug, you'll see those later on, but please make sure that your address and banner is up to date and current, because as we begin programming and sending things to you via U.S. mail, we want those items to actually make it to you, make it to your hands. So make sure that your address and banner is correct. Make sure the address on your receipt is also correct. Receipts must be original, include the date and the total, be in good condition, and be submitted within 2 weeks of purchase. We cannot reimburse a receipt that's illegible. You walk around with it in your pocket for a few weeks, you wash those pants, and then you bring the receipt to the office to get reimbursed. If I can't read it, the business office can't read it. If the business office cannot read your receipt, there is a very strong likelihood that you are not going to be able to get a reimbursement for your purchase. So, submit it in a timely manner, specifically within 2 weeks. Do not mix your personal items with your RSO items in a single transaction. Rather, separate the transactions. So, we're not looking at your reimbursement receipt wondering why you may have purchased alcohol, or why you may have purchased potatoes, cereal, milk. Keep those items very separate so it's easy to tell from an auditing standpoint exactly which items are for the RSO. So on your receipt, just include those RSO items. Faculty and staff, you will need to enter your reimbursement through the travel and expense module before a payment can be made. Also, a word of caution about reimbursements. Before any reimbursement can be initiated, a vendor form, not a W-9, must be on file. So if you bring the documents in for reimbursement, we're going to ask you if you submitted a vendor form. The good thing about the vendor form is you only need to do it once. Once you're in our shared system in Sandersville, you no longer have to complete the vendor form. Reimbursement payments for travel. For students, faculty, and staff, the following conditions must be met prior to traveling and submitting a said reimbursement. There must be a travel authorization request on file. This form is brand new, as of about 2 weeks ago. So it's very important that you complete the form. It's a very easy form to use. It's a fillable form. You fill it out online, hit submit, and it goes directly to the Vice President of Student Affairs, who will verify whether or not you actually have the funds to take this trip. So if you're planning a rather large trip to, say, Disney World, and you submit your travel authorization request to Student Affairs for, say, $600 to go to Disney, she's going to check your account and tell you either yes, you can go, or no, you cannot go, especially if you only have $5 for that $600 trip to Disney. Travel documents, which are now only 2-page, cut back from 4. This does include the travel roster, and it must be on file at least 5 days before travel occurs. We need those original receipts. I cannot stress that enough. The travel was authorized according to your RSO's meeting minutes. You have the funds to pay for it, and the individual has traveled on behalf of the organization and needs a reimbursement for expenses related to travel. Travel information for students. Helpful hints. MGA students seeking reimbursement for travel must have travel documents on file. Travel must be approved using the travel authorization request. Travel must be approved by the Office of the Vice President for Student Affairs. MGA faculty and staff will need to enter the reimbursement in the travel and expense module, also known as T&E, before payment can be made. Again, travel must be pre-approved by the Office of the Vice President for Student Affairs. Receipts must include the date and total, be in good condition, not highlighted, rather circle the items on the receipt if needed, must be the original receipts, and again, stressing again, do not mix personal transactions with official transaction. I've included the link to the MGA travel website, which is www.mga/accounting-services/travel. Payment methods. Faculty and staff, we will deposit your reimbursements into your checking account, the same as your payroll. For students, your reimbursements will be mailed to you. Again, provide your student ID number, your RSO name, and your correct mailing address. Because if you're waiting for a reimbursement for a couple of $100s, you really want to make sure you get that money back as quickly as possible, which is why it's critical that we have your correct mailing address. I just wanted to share with you a couple of commonly used terms. Not everyone might be familiar with these terms. COA, which is short for Council on Organizational Activities. RSO actually stands for Recognized Student Organization. Student Government Association, of course that's your SGA. The facilities request an event registration form. This is a form that you will use to request space for your meetings, for your events, and your fundraisers. The federal application for federal student aid, or the free application for federal student aid. I included this only because in the past there have been companies out there who charge $35 to $65 or more to process your free application for federal student aid. Again, this application is free, and if there's a website or a company offering to process it for you for a fee, run. Do not pay that money. This is a free application. An agency account is used for your fundraiser proceeds and or your club dues. The vendor form, again, this form replaced the W-9, and it must be on file prior to requesting reimbursements. Only one vendor form submission is necessary. Resources. We have a wealth of resources on the Student Life website, which is at www.mga.edu/student-life/documents. Some of the information contained on this website are general documents and forms, financial forms, travel documents, facilities request forms, annual recognition forms, and others. I've included the contact information for all 5 campuses. The Macon campus is located in the Student Life Center. The telephone number is 471-2710. For the Cochran campus, Student Life is currently located in Georgia Hall, 934-3152. Dublin, first floor, 275-6768. For Eastman, located on the second floor, 448-4703. And lastly, Warner Robins is located in Thomas Hall. That number is 329-4741. If you have any questions whatsoever, please feel free to contact me. I can be reached at dee.lindsey, that's Lindsey, @mga.edu. I can also be reached by phone at 471-2710. Guess what? It's now time for you to tell us what exactly you learned today. It's time for that post-test. Are you ready? It's just 10 short questions, just to make sure that the information that I spoke about today is actually conveyed. You actually picked it up and learned some very critical information needed for your particular RSOs. Remember, there are no right or wrong answers, as we will review each question together as a group. Thank you for attending. Have a wonderful, wonderful day.